What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Blackwater. On today's episode, we are going to talk about how to pattern a big buck to make yourself more successful. The first thing to take into consideration when patterning a big buck is that you have to understand deer. And a lot of times I talk with people about that, and they take it to a whole nother level. Like deer are these special mythical creatures that do stuff different than every other animal on the planet. And that's not true. And the easiest way to understand deer is to understand yourself or humans or people in your family. And it's pretty simple if you break it down to something that's more relatable to yourself, and then use that information and transfer that over to the deer world. And at that point, you'll be able to make a better image in your head of putting together a plan of attack on how to find this big buck that you're after. Here's kind of what I mean. Every morning at your house, you wake up, you get out of bed. From the bed, you go to the bathroom, you pee, you brush your teeth, you do whatever. From the bathroom, you go to the kitchen. You get your coffee, your breakfast, whatever that is. From the kitchen, you go back to your bedroom. You put on your clothes for work. From your bedroom, you go to your car. You get in your car, you drive to work. When the day's over, you drive back from work to your house. From your house, you go back into your bedroom. You put on clothes to hang out in the house in. You go from your bedroom to the kitchen. You eat supper with your family. When that's over, you go from there back to the bathroom to brush your teeth and put your pajamas on. Then you get in bed and you repeat the process the next day. Guess what? Deer do the exact same thing every single day. Each morning, a buck's going to get up. He's going to pee, do whatever he's got to do. He's going to go from there to a feeding pattern. After his feeding pattern, he's going to go from there to his work, which is pushing his does, making his scrapes, checking his scrapes, making his rubs, doing whatever that consists of. Deer, since they don't have to go to a 9 to 5, might go back to their bedding area in the midday, do that. Then they're going to get back up in the evening. They're going to go repeat the process and eat again, chase their does again, do whatever, come back to their bedding area. So they have a cyclical pattern that is consistent day in and day out. A deer doesn't really wake up and decide, you know what, I'm going to go 2 miles that way today, and I'm going to make a scrape and a rub over there for no specific reason, and then I'm going to come over here, and tomorrow I might go over here and do one up there. No, they have a territory, they have a pattern, just like you and I do, and they're going to be extremely consistent in how they work that pattern. The reason I say this is basically because I know this is what I do for a living, and we've got 15 properties that we hunt on in the Blackwater company. And I can go year after year after year and watch the same deer progress from age 1 to age 5 and not leave a particular part of a ranch on any ranch that we go to. And that's, I mean, when you're talking about whitetail, they are very, very predictable in that manner of how they're going to act, how they're going to travel, where they're going to return to. And so when you break that down and think of it in the aspect of what you do every day when you get up and go to work and come back from work, and translate that into deer terms, it's the same thing. So that's the first part in understanding how a deer works and what you need to be able to do to pattern that buck to hang him on your wall. Now that you got that in your head and understand the concept, you have to determine in the next process which buck is easier to pattern. So go back to the human thinking and think of it this way. If you're looking for a person, is it easier to find the person that lives in Dallas and can take 14 different routes to get back and forth from his house to work? Or is it easier to find a person that lives, say, in the town of Utopia, Texas, that has one road that goes into town where he works and one road that comes back out of town to his house? The question is, or the answer is, obviously it's easier to find the person that is in the smaller tract. Deer are the exact same way, where it's awesome to think about being able to hunt a place that's 10,000 acres. That's a lot of contiguous country that allows for a deer who's only going from point A to point B and returning to point A it allows him multiple different routes to get back and forth to that destination. Whereas if you're on a smaller track that may be landlocked by a highway or buildings or whatever it is, the deer's path becomes smaller and smaller to the point that he may only have 1, 2, 3 different routes that he can take to get back and forth. He's coming back and forth. It doesn't matter. He's not going to decide tomorrow that he's going to live over there. It's his home base, his feeding base, his travel base is all set. It's just a matter of how many paths can he take to get back and forth to there. The smaller the place, the fewer the paths that he has. The larger the place, the more paths that he has to do that. So in order to kill a big buck and be consistent in doing that, it is wiser, in my opinion, to find the smaller tracts of land that allow you the ability to narrow down the pattern of the deer that you're after. Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking is, yeah, but Sky, there's more big bucks on a 10,000 acre place than there is on a 200 acre place. And you're right. But what you have to remember is that acres per deer is acres per deer if you're in the same area. I mean, it's all relative to math. There's no secret science that says just because a property's bigger that it's better to hunt. That's not the case at all. Matter of fact, I think if you looked into records and stuff like that, that you would find that a lot of your bigger bucks are taken on smaller tracts of property. But in theory, yes, if you got on a 10,000 acre piece of property, there would be more large bucks than there are on a 200 acre piece of property. However, if you're doing it in a manner of scouting and finding a travel corridor and hunting, you can only hunt the same amount of bucks. You can't cover all 10,000 acres and be successful unless you're going to ride in a high rack and shoot a deer, which in the state of Texas is perfectly legal. And if that's your thing, go for it. I have no problem with that at all. But you shouldn't even be watching this video because it has nothing to do with that. If you're going to ride in a high rack and shoot a deer, there's no planning, no preparation, no skill to do that other than being able to accurately shoot your weapon. And therefore go out and do it and have a great time doing it. But if you're wanting to do a hunt that is successful in the sense of being able to plan, the process of going after a big deer, putting in your preparation and your scouting time and finding travel corridors and rubs and scrapes and bedding areas and the whole 9 yards, then my advice to you is to narrow the land that you're trying to do that on, because larger tracts of land, and I've done this myself, larger tracts of land get your brain wandering way out there of what could be over there, what could be over there, what could be over there, as opposed to, I know my whole world is right here in this little section of woods, and this is what I'm going to focus on, and this is what I'm going to spend my time studying in order to harvest the one mature buck that I know is coming through here. And I'm not telling you that, finding a small track's gonna get you a giant deer or that there's giant deer everywhere. What I'm telling you is that there are mature bucks everywhere, and you can harvest a mature buck easier by shrinking your land size or the area of property you're trying to cover. Your next question is probably going to be, well, yeah, how do I know that there's a deer on that small tract? I know there's deer on these big tracts. How do I know there's a deer on the small tract? Well, to be honest, you don't until you go out and put the work in. I do a lot of back road driving. I'll drive around in the morning and the evening time and just look for deer out in fields or pushing up through creek bottoms or whatever it might be, and seeing, okay, there's deer in field X. I get on the map, I look at field X. Johnny Joe owns field X, and the whole field on OnX map shows that it's 130 acres. Well, that's a small piece compared to what a lot of people, or myself included, are taking clients to hunt. However, if the deer is in the middle of a 130 acre field, the deer is living right around there somewhere. And so I can take that, I can contact Johnny Joe, figure out a way for me to be able to hunt in that area. And then there's my starting point for what do I need to do on this 130 acres to determine where's that deer traveling? At that point, I'm getting on my map, on Onyx, whatever base map, whatever system you want to use. None of them pay me anything, so I don't care which one you use. They're all pretty good. But I'm going to get on there and I'm going to go, okay, I saw that deer right here in the middle of this field. There's one track of water up here in the corner. There's a good wood line right here. The map is showing that the natural pinch point is this direction. I don't know why he was out in that field, but after I study it long enough, get out there and look around, I can probably determine where he was going or coming from to get to the point that he's at in that field. At that point, that's where I'm going to start setting up, and it might take a while. It might take all season. I might not get that deer, but I know the deer is in there, and I know that if I put myself in this position to watch where he's traveling, then I've got a good shot at getting that buck. So now that I know he's there in that field, my next step is not to just rush out there and hang a stand or put up a feeder or do this or do that. You honestly don't need a feeder in that situation. If the deer's already out there, he's eating somewhere around there to begin with. He's not out there starving. So he knows what he's doing. Your best bet is to hang back and watch that deer. That's why it's called patterning. That's why it's called hunting. You're watching what this animal is doing. Let him tell you that he's going to wake up in the morning and walk from this point to this point, or in midday he's going to go from this point to bed in this point. That's how you kill the big bucks. You don't do it by running out and setting a feeder up somewhere and hoping that they change their pattern to your pattern, because once you set up a feeder, you're trying to initiate a new pattern for deer. If you're watching a big buck who already has his mind set up, mind you, he does the same thing every day. Just because I throw a plate of food out in the middle of I-35 doesn't mean that you're going to stop eating breakfast in your living room if it's there, or in your kitchen if it's there every morning, and automatically change your pattern to go from brushing your teeth to running out to I-35 and picking up the plate of food that I set out and running back in, and then starting your process over. And if you did, you would probably think something was a little weird about that, which is the exact same thing that deer do. So watch him. Just watch him and see what he's doing. He's going from here to here to here. And at this point is when you're going to start looking on your map and going, okay, he's going from here to here to here. This is my predominant wind in this area. This section over here would be extremely loud to walk through, so I don't want to be doing that. This section over here gives me the best bet to get myself within range of shooting that deer. And at that point is when you go in and A, either hang or place your stand, or B, just sneak in there quietly and find yourself an area with natural surroundings that you can set up in to give yourself the best chance to harvest that buck. So to wrap this thing up, and I know I've spewed tons of crazy information that might be bouncing all around in your head with different ideas right now, and I hope it is. I hope it's got you thinking. But in my opinion, to wrap this all up, in order to pattern and kill a big buck without going and paying thousands of dollars to do it, it's a pretty simple process as far as the planning goes. One, begin to understand deer by relating that, what you know about yourself and other humans, to the deer world. That's step one. Step two, quit thinking that you have to be in a certain part of the state or a certain large tract of land to be able to harvest a deer. Deer are all over our state, and some of the best deer are killed on small tracts of property. So get it out of your head that you have to have thousands of acres to kill a big buck. I see that on Facebook all the time. I've only got 150 acres. We've only got 50 acres. When I was a kid growing up in Utopia, we had 5 acres. I've killed tons of big deer, taken my friends, killed tons of big deer, axis bucks, black bucks, all kind of stuff would come through there because no reason being of mine or our families. My grandfather, when he bought the place, just happened to buy a place that if you picked a spot on the map in that area was the perfect pinch point for that whole area. So the point I'm trying to make is you don't have to have some giant piece of land to kill a big deer. Every big deer you've ever killed in your entire life, or anybody has ever killed in their entire life, has been standing in no more than 1 acre. Now, I'm not saying all you need to hunt is an acre, because they obviously have to move around more than that, but 50 to 200 acres, although it seems small, is a great opportunity to kill yourself a big buck. So quit worrying about having to have huge tracts of land. Find a small tract of land in your area, and I think you'll be good to go. 3, in finding a small tract of land, it is very beneficial to understand that there are deer that use that tract of land prior to deciding to hunt it. So use your surroundings, you know what I mean? Use your network. Find out where people are seeing deer. Get out yourself, drive around. There is nothing against the law about driving around and looking for deer. As long as you're not trying to poach or do something like that, you have the right to ride around wherever you live and look and see if you see deer. If you see deer, at that point, you get on the map system like Onyx or Base Maps, you figure out who the landowner is, and you try to work a deal. Some of them might say, yeah, sure, come on, hunt, if you're friends with them or build a relationship. Some of them might ask you for a little bit of money to do it. Some of them may want too much money to do it, but you don't know until you actually ask them permission to do it or try to negotiate a deal for you to get on there. 4, once you acquire the property, quit thinking that you immediately have to run out there and set up your stuff and set up a feeding spot for the deer. That is not necessary. There are people all over the country that don't do that. The best thing to do if you are trying to plan and pattern a whitetail deer is to watch him. He will tell you exactly what he is going to do. So stay away from him. Get yourself a position that you can buy binoculars. Some of them are expensive, some of them are cheap. They all work decent enough. Stay away from him. Figure out where you saw him that time, that first time that you saw him, because you had to. You had to have already seen a deer in the area to be able to contact the landowner in the first place, or you're wasting your time. So pinpoint where you saw him, get away from that area and watch it and see what the deer does. Figure out what his pattern is before you try to kill him. And that is a huge mistake that people make, is setting themselves up to try to kill a deer that they don't have a pattern on. You don't pick random spots and kill big deer. Unless you're lucky. Some of you are. I'm not. I don't pick random spots and kill deer. So pattern the deer. Watch where he's at and watch exactly what he's doing, and watch him for a while. If you're in the state of Texas, you got archery season October, and then November starts rifle season, and you've got December, and you got about a week in January. So you got 3 months and about a week. You can watch the deer. It only takes 1 day to kill him. You've got a lot of days that you can watch him and figure out his pattern. So figure that out before you decide to make your next step. The last thing you want to do is pick where you're going to set up or sit. I'm a big believer in just using the natural surroundings. Once I've got the deer pattern, I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to go right there to that spot. I'm going to lean up against that tree or whatever it is, and this is how I'm going to get my shot. If you want to hang a stand, that's fine too. If you want to brush in a bow blind or build yourself a ground blind, that's fine too. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. After you've got the deer patterned and you pick your spot to sit, don't go in there at a time that the deer's going to be coming through there. Let him be in his travel that day at the furthest point away from the area that you want to set up. So if you know the deer goes from here to here throughout the day and you're wanting to set up over here, make sure the deer's over here when you decide to go in here and set up. Don't let him be right here to where he can hear and see and smell everything that you got going on. Makes no sense. You've just wasted everything that you've done. So be smart about when you go in and set up your spot. Also, when you're deciding to set up your spot, make sure it's in an area that the predominant wind for your area is not going to be blowing your scent towards the deer, and that you have a way into and out of your sitting area that is not extremely loud and noisy or is not going to drag your scent past the deer. Do everything from a side that the deer is not participating in. So if he does all his action from here to here, make sure you use all your action from here to here. If that makes sense. Don't start in here or right here and walk in there and leave everything in the middle scented up and with sound or giving yourself a way to walk past him when you're coming out. Do everything behind his back and set yourself up in an area that he has no idea while he's coming to that the hunter yourself is sitting in an area that's about to end it all for him. Hey, once again, guys, I'm no genius on this stuff. It's just what I do. I literally do this every day of the year, and I've done this for years of my life now, and I enjoy doing it. And I'm probably wrong on some things, but I'm telling you right now, this process has worked for me and worked for guys that I guide or consult or help out with on how to pattern and kill their big bucks. And it's a blast doing this. If you have pointers or tips that you say, hey Sky, you know what, you ought to try this, it might work better for you, I'm open, man. I'm an open book with my ideas and suggestions and what I've learned in the past, and I'm an open book for you guys to throw stuff back at me and bounce ideas off me. I hope this works for you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thanks so much again for watching this channel. Our subscribers are at 570 now. Like I said, once we get to 1,000, I'm going to give one of you guys a free hunt with us and Blackwater Guide Service to come out and harvest a really nice animal. Hope you guys like this. If you get a chance and you haven't, please click subscribe or like this video. And if you will, share it with your friends, family. Tell them to jump on here and subscribe too. We're family friendly. You're not going to hear any cussing or any vulgar stuff on this channel. It's all about learning more about hunting, about whitetail, about exotics, and just good ideas to practice in the field. You guys take care. We'll see you on the next episode.